Good morning, Jeremy Forrest with Premier Pro Wash and Seal. Back once again, just going over some stock picking metrics that I look at. Again, I'm not a financial advisor. This is just what has personally worked for me over the last 20 years that I thought that I would share this, not just with my family and employees, but I would put together something for others to view as well. So. In the last two videos I made one video on how to value the stock to see if it's worth, buying at that price. And then the other video I did, we talked about some of the factors that we're looking for with the business, what makes it competitive, what a moat is, and those kind of things. This video is going to be more about the metrics that we're looking for. And so I put together a list of things that I'm looking at when I'm looking at a business. I found a business that meets a lot of my criteria. It's at a price that I like. Let's dive into some of the metrics now. First off, going back to Warren Buffett, who is arguably the greatest investor of all time, you definitely want to invest in wonderful companies. I would rather pay a little bit more for a high quality business than I would a subpar business and buying it cheap. So quality businesses are what we're looking for. Best in class. Strong leadership is important. So you want to look at that business's CEO and leadership team and make sure that it displays strong leadership. As we talked about in another video, moat, which is essentially its competitive advantage. You're looking for businesses that are best in class, that have a strong competitive advantage, who own a large part of the market share. These companies typically will thrive in good times and bad. And remember, we want companies that are going to last. And if you look down here, one of the criteria that I look for is I always ask myself before I invest into a business, will this business most likely still be here 10 years from now? Because remember, I'm always thinking long-term perspective. I'm never buying a stock and just with the intention of buying it and selling it that year. Can it happen? Of course it can happen. Things happen, but my mindset is to buy that stock to never sell. And so I always, before I purchase any stock, I always ask myself, 10 years from now, will this business still last? Coca-Cola, I know people are still going to drink Coke 10 years from now. Let's take a hot topic in today's world is Twitter. I know Elon Musk is looking into buying it, has agreed verbally to buy it. And so, but when I look at Twitter, I don't know if Twitter is going to be around 10 years from now. I mean, there could be some other social media platform that comes along that everyone jumps to, and Twitter is just kind of a thing in the past. But Coca-Cola, I know Coke's going to be here. Starbucks, I know Starbucks is going to be here. Apple, I know Apple's going to be here 10 years from now. So have that mindset that you're looking for businesses that 10, 15, 20 years from now, you have no doubt in your mind they're still going to be around. Will they be around? I mean, sure, you could look at a Coca-Cola and they might not be here 15 years from now, but the chance of that happen is very, very, very slim. So hopefully you understand what I mean by that. And then, as I've alluded to before, I'm really big into dividends. I love passive income. Everyone talks about passive income. Usually they associate that with rental properties, real estate. I'm not saying you're wrong with real estate. Obviously, I know several people that make a good living with real estate and they have rental properties. I tried rental properties. I did not like it. I don't like, middle of the night, the AC goes out. Now I got to run and fix that problem overnight. I like businesses that run by themselves, that the dividend comes in like clockwork. And that's why I like to look into a business that not only pays a dividend, but has a history of increasing those dividends over time, because that's how you beat inflation. Some great books to turn to if you're looking to invest, I would highly recommend any book that covers Warren Buffett. Again, one of the greatest investors of all time, if not the greatest investor of all time. For something like 50 or 60 years, he's compounded his money at a 20% or greater rate. That essentially means his money's going to double about every 3.5 years. And if you do that over 10, 15, 20, 30 years, your money can really grow really, really fast. So any book that contains Warren Buffett, Peter Lynch has a little bit different style than Warren Buffett, but he is a great author to read. He achieved an amazing record as well. Don't quote me on this, but it was something like 30% a year for 13 years. So he's definitely someone to pay attention. One of his most important books is a book called One Up on Wall Street. Great book. Motley Fool, it's a website ran by Tom and David Gardner. This is what actually got me started over 20 years ago. Tom and David Gardner and their website, Motley Fool. Lots of valuable information. Recommend it whether you're a new investor or a seasoned investor. They always have great articles and literature to read. And then Benjamin Graham. This was actually one of Warren Buffett's mentors. His book, The Intelligent Investor, according to Warren Buffett, is the greatest investment book of all time. It is very long. It's very deep. I would not recommend that book if you're just starting out because it is very technical. But once you get some understanding, I definitely recommend his book and read anything about Benjamin Graham. These two guys are highly known as value investors, and all the time you'll hear that value investing is dead, but it works. It works decade after decade. As soon as they start claiming that value investing is dead, we run into a recession, and as you see right now, value investing or value stocks are the ones going up while technology and everything is crashing right now. So regardless of what they tell you, value investing, there's still a place in it. I've achieved great returns with this philosophy, and I encourage others to at least be open-minded to it. Now, getting to some of the metrics that I look for. We went over a little bit over the PE, the price to earnings. Personally, I'm looking for PEs lower than 20. It's not to say that I won't buy a business with a PE of 25 or 30, but that company's got to be doing some other things really special. It's got to be a very high quality business for me to warrant paying a PE over 30. Some of the stocks like Apple, Microsoft, they're high quality stocks, so you're not going to see those stocks with a PE of 10. And if you do, you definitely want to jump in if that occurs, or there's something that really went wrong with that business. But I like to look for businesses with a PE, preferably under 20, and then calculate that with the dividend, and you can get some really strong returns if you're patient, if you're disciplined, and you know what you're doing. So PE is obviously high. I talked about in another video, just remember, you're not wrong if you're a growth investor. There's definitely money to be made. That's how you can, if you buy a small business and you get lucky, let's say you bought Tesla 10 years ago and you put $5,000 in it, and you hear about someone that turned $5,000 into $1 million. That's your small speculative stocks that typically do that. I am into some of those now, but remember, I built my foundation off of dividend stocks. So it's allowing me now to be a little bit more aggressive because I have dividends to fall back on. But when you're first beginning, I would recommend that you build your foundation around high quality, long-lasting businesses that you know are going to be around 10, 15, 20 years from now, that have strong moats, that have strong leadership. Build your foundation there, and then once you get that built and get that started, then that will allow you to be a little bit more aggressive later on if you want to. Some people have the philosophy that growing the growth, and while you're young, you can take more risk. And yes, you can, but I still believe firmly that you should build your foundation around high quality dividend paying stocks first. But to each their own. The debt level, I want to see, this is where you'll mostly find this on the balance sheet. And when you're looking at this, I know this can seem intimidating or a lot, but you know, when I first started this in the 90s, you had to actually go back and punch in the numbers yourself and calculate them. In today's world, all of these are already, you just click on the company or you Google this and you can find this information just like that. It's not like it used to be where you'd have to actually manually go back and calculate it yourself. So, and this is third grade math. It just looks intimidating, but once you understand a few of the metrics to look for, you'll realize it's not near as intimidating as it seems. You want to buy simple businesses. Starbucks is a very simple business. They sell coffee. It's the second most consumed liquid in the world behind water. It's a very simple business to understand. Altria, it costs 30 cents to put a pack of cigarettes together, but they sell it for $7, and it's an addictive product. There's no advancements. They don't have to come up with the next iPhone. It's just a simple product that can be repeated. You want to find simple businesses with a healthy cash to debt flow. So for me, again, you can find this on the balance sheet. When you're looking at the balance sheet, you want to look at their cash and cash equivalents, and you want to ideally try to find a business that has twice as much cash than liabilities. So this is very important. Make sure you're not investing into debt-ridden companies, because if you are and they have a lot of debt and they can't back up that debt because they don't have a lot of cash, and you run into hard times, you get a pandemic that suddenly starts, or as we're seeing inflation at a 40-year high, and so people are having to cut back on some things. If a company is loaded with debt, then they may have to stop their dividends, or they may have to, if they do carry their dividends, they're not going to increase them, or they've got to cut somewhere. So that's why it's important that you definitely invest in businesses that have a strong cash to debt equity ratio. So again, I prefer that the businesses I buy, they have twice as much cash on hand as debt. A rising consistent earning per share growth, that goes back to a video I made before where we talked about we want to see consistent earnings per share growth. And remember, a stock price is heavily tied to the earnings. Again, let me repeat that because that's very important. A stock price will be heavily influenced by earnings. So that's why you want to see a consistent rising earning per share growth. And then with that, you also want to see a consistent rising sales growth as well. So, you know, if they sold $1 million worth of products in 2012 and now we're in 2022, you don't want them to still just be selling $1 million in revenue, right? You probably want it to be somewhere around $3 million. You want to see that consistently growing right along with earnings per share. This last one, the free cash flow, that's just essentially money left over. So you find that as well on the balance sheet. You want to check out their free cash flow and make sure that you have a company that's making money. The dividend payout ratio. By now, you know I love dividend paying stocks, but you want to make sure that you're investing into a business that can afford those dividends, and they can afford to keep not only paying them, but increasing them over time. So you will find the dividend payout ratio. I prefer businesses that have a payout ratio less than 60%, because once you get into those higher numbers, again, if something goes wrong, if we have an unexpected pandemic or whatever, war, I mean, there's a litany of things that could rapidly suddenly happen that you're not prepared for. You want to find businesses with a payout ratio of less than 60%, because when tough times hit, you want to be invested in a company that's still going to pay you. There are a few industries where maybe that payout ratio is like, I'll say tobacco, for instance, is their management goal is to keep their payout ratio around 80%. They're a mature company. They're not expanding rapidly into other markets, so they can afford for their payout ratio to be a little bit higher. So that's not a hard, fast rule. That's just a general rule that for the majority of cases. So when you're looking at the payout ratio, look at what that industry averages or payout ratio and see if that company is kind of in line. So for example, look at home builders. There's a D.R. Horton is a home builder. This industry average payout ratio is like 50%. Well, D.R. Horton's is like 10%. So you can see they're well below the average, meaning they've got a lot of room for dividend growth in the future. Profit margins. This tells you how profitable a company is. As you can imagine, that's very important. I like to see profit margins at least 15% or higher. Again, this will be dependent on the industry. Some technology stocks, they might have profit margins in the 40s, and then you might have like a railroad industry that has profit margins 10-12%. So you need to understand the industry that you're investing in and kind of gauge that, but I like to see profit margins 15% or higher on good, high quality businesses. And then return on equity, same thing. I like to see a return on equity. This is basically telling you how efficient leadership and management is with the money left over. And anytime you can find a business that consistently returns a return on equity higher than 15%, you know that management knows what they're doing. That's a healthy number. So here are some metrics that I look for. I'm sure I missed something, but this is the main core of metrics I'm looking for, from management to dividends, how strong their competitive advantages, also known as moat, debt level, the price to earnings, consistent earnings per share growth. All of these things matter. Again, I know it looks complicated when you're first looking at it, but try not to be overwhelmed by this. This is very simple stuff. If you know what you're looking for, you get a little bit of experience looking for these kind of things, and you're dead set on buying individual stocks. I think that if you look into industries, if you're first beginning, like we talked about in another video, consumer staples is a great place to begin. It's not the only sector that I invest in or recommend, but that would build you a strong foundation. And if you're using these metrics and you're calculating using the tool I demonstrated on how to value a stock, I think you're setting yourself up for some really strong returns. Nothing's guaranteed. I'm just telling you once again what has worked for me. I'm sharing with you some of the metrics I look for, and I really hope this helps you. And you know, the goal is to better ourselves. And one thing I love about the stock market is it doesn't matter who you are, where you came from, how tall you are, if you're fat, if you're skinny, if you're short, if you're tall, if you're black, if you're white, it doesn't matter. The stock market does not care. This is something that we could all take advantage of if we know what to look for. And sometimes it just seems overwhelming. It seems very complicated. But if you break it down into small sections, and again, you know what you're looking for, don't let it intimidate you. Understand that the stock market is one of the greatest wealth creators of all time, and it's there for everyone to use if you know what you're looking for. So don't be intimidated. Go out, try it, learn from it, and whatever you do, make sure you read some literature on Warren Buffett. Even if you're not a value investor, it will help you become a better investor. I hope this helps. Please let me know if there's anything else you guys would like me to do a video on in the comments section. But I think this pretty much wraps up the main things that I'm looking for in this little 3-part series I put together. So thank you guys for watching. I hope it helps. it.